Hi, everybody. This is Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles Stories of the Supernatural. And I hope you enjoy this new show, whether you're viewing it on the internet or listening to a podcast version of the episode. I do want to thank you for being part of my audience. You can also find links to videos or podcasts on miamighostchronicles.com, as well as where you can submit your story about any eerie experiences you've had, which I would love to hear about. Just go to the Submit Your Story tab. Please subscribe to our channel so that you receive notification of when we release a new show. And find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. This is where I usually live stream and where I give you a behind-the-scenes look at locations where new episodes are being filmed at. I also tell you about all the interesting guests that will be appearing soon on Stories of the Supernatural. I hope you enjoy the show, and I think you are all wonderful. Hi everybody, it's Marlene with Miami Ghost Chronicles Stories of the Supernatural. How's everybody doing? Well, it's tonight for me, but wherever you're at, hope you're having a good day. And I know I am. Part of it is because of the guest that I have here with me today. And she is a lady by the name of Alex Matsuo. Now, Alex is an actor, a singer, a dramaturg, a director, photographer, playwright, and my favorite, paranormal investigator / researcher. She earned her Master of Arts in Theater Arts from San Diego State University. And in January of 2014, she published her first book, The Haunted Actor. And in May of 2015, she also published More Than Ghosts, a guide to working residential cases in the paranormal field, which serves as a guidebook for paranormal teams who work residential cases, which, you've heard me a million times on my other shows how important that is. And she's also published The Haunting of the 10th Avenue Theater. So let me bring her on. How are you doing today, Alex?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Absolutely wonderful. Alex, I know you've written, besides the paranormal, you have other works, but I'm going to ask you what I ask all my guests, which is, when was, if ever, your first encounter with the paranormal? Was it as a child, as an adult, or what made you interested in this field?
It was definitely as a child. I was about between around 7-ish years old. I used to spend a good deal of my summers in Kentucky, like 1 to 2 weeks, to visit my grandmother's family. And my great-grandmother lived in this pretty old home where the foundation was dated back to like 1800s-esque, and the structure was a little newer, but there was always something creepy with the land. I was always a little uncomfortable there, especially at night. And I had a few encounters there as a child that really shook me up and made me realize like there's something out there that I don't understand, but I also wanted to know more about it. So my mother wasn't a big fan of me trying to learn more about it, though, so that got stifled for a bit.
So did your grandmother ever confess that she had experiences, or were you kind of told, like, it's just your imagination kind of thing, which is what they do to a lot of kids, unfortunately?
Not even that. It was just that happened. Okay, moving on. Like, it was just something you didn't talk about. So it wasn't even validation of, this is all in your head. It was, okay.
All right, okay. So, what else is new, right?
But I know my mother had experiences there. She had quite a few as well. She didn't share those with me until I was a lot older. It would have been nice if I knew when I was just, so I didn't feel like I was crazy. But, right now that house is actually sitting empty. It's on, land that my family owns, but I would, if I ever had the chance, I would love to go back there just to see if I can try to better understand what was there.
Absolutely. And I know what you mean, as far as I've heard of that story before, that everybody fesses up when everybody's an adult, and then the parents say, well, you know what, I was afraid I would scare you if I actually confirmed it. And let's face it, sometimes adults are scared, but they don't want to show that in front of their kids because then they'll think, "Oh my God." So, and what do you think?
Yeah,
It's also the
exactly.
land, or just besides the house is the actual land surrounding it? That
hmm Yeah, so this house is located. It's still standing in a little river town called Catlettsburg, Kentucky. It's a little town in the tri-state area. So if you go across the bridge on the right, you're going
mm-hmm.
to Ohio. Go across the bridge on the left, you're going to West Virginia. So very much little river town. You got the Ohio River, and also it's literally a train stop. So you got the railroad there too. So that area alone has a lot of energy
Oh
flowing in from the
yes.
railroad and the river,
Yes.
and there's also a lot of Native American history there too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the town has grown quite a bit in the last 10, 15 years. Marathon Oil is there. They have the refinery there.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the people who live there work for the refinery or work for the company. Yeah, so there's a lot there. A lot of old time religion there too. My family's Free Will Baptist, so the family in Kentucky, they're Free Will Baptists, and they're very, very intense and passionate about their faith. And there's also literally like a whole block where it's like churches side by side, almost stacked on top of each other. So
Yeah.
it's a very spiritual community as well.
Right, and I understand what you mean as far as that there's sometimes layers as far as like you said with the land, starting with the
hmm
natives that live there, and then absolutely where there's a railroad. Yeah, I found that sometimes it ends up being a hot spot for paranormal events. So what happened? You went off, and I see that you got into the acting field and theater and all of that, but
Yeah.
then I see that you wrote also some books about not only the guidebook for paranormal investigations, but also as far as haunted theaters.
Yes, yes. I was kind of had my hand in everything when I was growing up, just trying to find my little niche. And theater finally filled that void.
Mm-hmm.
I started doing theater when I was a kid, about 11 years old, and I've been doing it ever since. So what I really what I really love about it is just being able to express myself, find my self acceptance and whatnot. And obviously, I love it enough to keep going with it and get a master's degree, Master of Arts. It's not terminal. Hopefully, one day. Um, I wouldn't mind becoming Dr. Matsuo, in the next 10 years.
Hey.
Uh, so become the ghost doctor. I don't know, but anyway. So, got my master's degree. I was really focused on school at the time, but the paranormal was always kind of there. In fact, my colleagues from grad school even say, like, if I could find a way to integrate a ghost or a witch or a demon
Yes.
or a vampire, just anything kind of paranormal to integrate into my, studies and stuff, I did it. Like, I did a whole study on the Salem witch trials. I did a whole study on how ghosts are used as plot devices in
Mm-hmm.
Shakespeare. So I dedicated quite a bit of time to that, and that's actually the haunted actor is a lot of those, like a lot of the studies I did, linking the paranormal and theater together. Because who doesn't know about a haunted theater? I mean,
I was about to say theaters are God. They are renowned for being haunted because, let's face it, a lot of drama takes place behind the curtains as well as in front of it.
well, also if you think about the amount of energy that a person puts
Yes.
into their performance, uh, I have a few theories as to why theaters are so haunted. But especially when you think about characters that are based on real people.
Mm-hmm.
Leo Frank is a great example in the musical Parade. That's a big one. I know quite a few actors who have played that role,
Okay.
and have a few have even said that they felt possessed, so to speak, been wanting to explore that a little bit.
Okay.
But also you have Hamlet, for example. Daniel Day-Lewis was very much we know he's a method actor. That's
Mm-hmm.
something that's very well known. And what I found interesting, I found this a few times, and his name popped up in this, but there have been several actors who have played Hamlet, and that iconic scene with the ghost of Hamlet's father.
Right.
Actors who have played that role and have lost the father previously have reported seeing the face of their own father instead of the actor. So,
Really?
yeah,
Wow.
rumor has it that's why Daniel Day-Lewis does not do theater anymore, because that happened when he was doing his run at the West End. So it's interesting. It's
Wow,
very
like in other
interesting.
words, he didn't want to risk having that experience again.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly. Exactly.
Yes. I can see where some people will be like, that was just a little bit too real for me.
And for Daniel Day-Lewis to say that, that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you always, like you said, I mean, you're acting, but at the same time, I imagine that as an actor, you're thinking about what it is that your lines are and everything, and the last thing you're
hmm
expecting to see is, especially in a
Your
scene like
deceased,
that you're
your
going
deceased
to
loved one
exactly.
on the
It's
stage
like,
with
oh
you.
my
It's like, oh, hello. Um, yeah, and also, if you think about it, theaters are full of electrical energy as well, because you have the lights, you have
God. Hmm.
sound. Also, a lot of theaters will, because we're all on a budget here, will reuse props,
Right.
costumes, and I mean, when does the costumer put like spiritually cleanse the costumes before
Oh,
with the dry
sure.
cleaning?
By the way, have you
So,
ever heard of something like that where a certain piece, either in the background, in the set, or an
hmm
actual costume has some type of attachment or effect on the people that are using it?
I've heard some rumors throughout my time, especially in San Diego,
Mm-hmm.
of not I don't want to say haunted props because it sounds so like tongue in cheek, but like weird things have happened when the certain prop is being used.
Okay.
Um, so, which one such props, I don't want to name the theater because I don't want to call them out on a show and cause curiosity. But they actually saw dancing shadows on the stage during a performance, and tech people were literally like in the wings, like watching this, and the audience thought it was part of the show.
Really?
But the stage manager was in the booth, and you could hear everyone on the headset was like, "Are you seeing this? Are you seeing this?" And one of the shadows even was like mimicking the lead actor next to his shadow. So,
Oh, wow.
which I thought was actually really cool.
Yeah.
I was not
It's
at
like,
that
well,
performance, but
because
I heard all about it.
you know, well, when you see something like that it's mimicking, it's like, okay, this is not a residual. This is not like a reenactment of maybe something that happened, and it's like a loop. This, if it's mimicking, actually shows some type of like an intelligent haunting kind of thing going on
Yeah.
there.
Oh, it's very conscious and very aware, and so moments like those, I'm like, that's so cool. And of course, the audience when they saw it, they thought this was just a really cool trick. And then, when I saw the show, I was like, where's the shadows that I heard about?
Yeah.
And that came up with patrons, and actually, I think that moment did make the local paper. So I'll have to pull that up, and it's actually really fun to read. But yeah, I mean, theaters are just wonderful places in general. So I mean,
Let me
I
ask you
don't,
something. Is there any truth that actors are superstitious?
you know, I'm going to say yes to that, and not in the sense of if you say the name of the Scottish play inside a theater, you need to go out and spin
Hmm.
7 times and spit. But in the sense of, because I'm still a working actor, I have my ritual, so to speak. There's certain things that I need to do that I know will cultivate into a good performance. Like I have a process.
Okay.
Uh, I believe in the Scottish play, Curse. I guess I'm not in a theater. I can say it. No, wait. I have a huge project tomorrow. I can't say it. I don't want to jinx myself.
Okay. All right. Don't worry
we know
about
the name of the we know the name of the Scottish play.
it. Yes. Don't
Uh,
worry.
and I've done that show a few times, and it's so funny because every time things happen, and when you're in a show with a big cast, something's gonna happen. Like someone's gonna get hurt eventually, or someone's gonna get sick.
Hmm.
But it was crazy. Like our swords were like breaking. Like the blades would actually. I mean, and these are fake blades. So we're not talking like flying sharp objects here.
Right.
But the blades were coming out of the handles. Car accidents. The
Wow.
whole it was just really crazy. But the theory behind that curse is because of the play opens with "When shall we meet again?" and that whole speech by the witches, and that
Hmm.
Shakespeare used actual incantations when he wrote the text. So
Oh.
yeah, yeah. So, and I mean, again, it's a theory,
Hmm.
but we also have to think about where witches stood at the time of Shakespeare, because James the First was very much on a anti-witchcraft. I mean, he wrote demonology. So So, yeah, we also have to consider the cultural context, but it's certainly fascinating to think about that that's the reason why the curse exists in the first place.
Yeah, uh-huh. I guess nobody really wants to test a theory like at
I've
least
actually I've been wanting to test the theory. I just need to find an appropriate project that I'm willing to sacrifice.
I was gonna say, yeah, it's got to be on something that you're like, okay, if this goes south, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So, have you ever been in a certain theater? Because I mean, I've heard of even like certain rooms in the back where, let's say, an actor gets ready, that there's certain either projector rooms or certain places on the wings. Have you ever been in a theater like that that you found yourself like, if not, if you don't actually see something, a certain feeling?
Oh, yes. So there's the Spreckles Theater in downtown San Diego. I
Mm-hmm.
was actually a kid doing shows at the time, but there was apparently a ballerina that had fallen from the dressing rooms. They were second-story dressing rooms.
Oh,
She had been stretching on the railing, and either she got pushed or something had happened, but she had fallen off. She had fallen off the second floor, and she ended up passing. And there's a spot if you're at the balcony where she passed. You feel like cold spot. You feel really uncomfortable.
really?
You also feel like sadness, like a missed opportunity, which that would have been that would have been the case with this person.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Because
are common. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
and no, no, no. And I was going to ask you, how about, because I've also heard of certain theaters that have phantom audience or certain audience
Yes.
member that they keep showing up like while people are rehearsing. Have you ever heard about stuff like
Yes.
that?
Yes, there are actually a few theaters in New York that have that. One of them is, I'll have to look through my little notes really quick, but there's the theater in New York where the owner still haunts it, and it's really funny. He's actually very frisky with the ladies.
Really?
He's there. He gets a little too handy sometimes, but he'll be seen. He actually lives in the theater. That's how much that's how much he loves his space.
Mm-hmm.
So he lives in the theater. He's often seen, especially during opening night.
Okay.
He'll be seen going backstage to the audience, or to the actors, congratulating them on a good performance. And I find that very. It's the Belasco Theater.
Okay.
The Belasco Theater, where David Belasco, he was known as the Bishop of Broadway. He
Mm-hmm.
spent all of his time in this space, and he converted the attic into a penthouse. And apparently he even removed some of the floorboards so that he could watch rehearsals.
Mm-hmm.
And he's one of the most active spirits in the theater. And apparently he's been seen as a dark figure watching the actors on stage, congratulating the actors on a good performance, and also pinching the bottoms of women. So that's where,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, but you know what? That kind of haunting, it's maybe it's scary at certain points, but it doesn't seem like a malevolent type of, you know,
right.
haunting. And it's almost like you said, somebody that really liked what he was doing and where he was at. And it's
Yeah.
like, so I'm dead, and I'm gonna keep doing this no matter what.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah, I
Yep.
mean, and the reason why I had asked you that thing about the drama behind the curtains, and the reason I think about this myself is I'm thinking actors usually they have, yeah, it's not only because people sometimes only see the presentation of what's going on, but they're living their own lives as well
Mhm.
during these
Oh yeah.
productions. And I'm thinking to myself, these are all the emotions that, that these tragedies, whether it's competition, love
Mhm.
triangles, trying to get apart, or
Oh
curry
yeah.
somebody's favor, all those things that produce high human emotion. And
Right.
and I imagine also just like you said, the sheer energy and effort it takes to put a show together, to even if you're just an actor. I mean, I imagine it's like a whole team thing, even with the people that are
Oh
behind the
yes.
scenes.
Yes, especially if you're opening a show. I mean, you're going through multiple workshops. Like for
Mm-hmm.
example, the show Come From Away was workshopped in San Diego, I believe also in Seattle, and I believe Washington D.C. So they go through multiple runs, and even with multiple cast members, to find that perfect product before it moves to New York. And even when it's in New York, it's still in previews for several months before it
Okay.
finally opens, so to speak. So it's a lot of work. There's a lot of changes that happen, a lot of changes in music, lyrics, lines, character names, character choices. So what you see, the finished product on Broadway, it's most likely, I would say 99% of the time, nothing like how it was when the first day of rehearsals happened
Really?
for the concept.
And you know what? The reason why I say this also is as far as entertainment. This is about the most real entertainment you can get because nowadays, if it's a movie or a program, it can, be edited and fixed
Hmm.
with CG, with computer graphics. Forget it. There's no stopping. So theater is as real as it's going to get as
Yes.
far
Oh,
as
yes.
entertainment and talent, I guess is what I'm trying to get
Hmm.
to.
I
Um,
completely agree. I mean, because in movies, you can even do like multiple takes. You can stop and try it again. In
hmm
theater, you have the rehearsal process for a reason, but still, things can happen on stage. I mean, especially when you're doing something. A lot of actors are on contract for a year,
Right.
unless we're dealing with a celebrity, then they might have a shorter contract. But because they're there to sell the tickets. But yeah, a lot of actors are doing this for well over a year, and things can happen. I mean, snafus can happen, lines
Sure.
can be forgotten. Um, yeah, because I find that could happen even with shows that run for 3 weeks. So
Yeah.
from personal
Yeah.
experience.
Right. Right. Exactly. Like as in, if you're watching it, it's real time. It's really there. And I imagine that even as much as it's rehearsed, every, I guess, every time it's done, it's always not going to be exactly the same. There's always got to be a little bit of
Hmm.
difference because it's just the human condition. You can't reproduce something exactly time after time. So,
Yep.
um, I think that that's fascinating. And again, I think the emotion that's there lends itself to whether it's a residual
Hmm.
feeling for theater, especially if it's been around for a while, to an
Yes.
active haunting, depending on what went on there. And let me ask you, how did, based on that book, did you ever join a group as far as paranormal investigations, or did you start
You
one?
know, I started one. So I had looked for a team, but I didn't quite find one that was either recruiting or kind of had the similar concepts that I had or
Mm-hmm.
ideas. And so I decided, let's just try this. Let me just try creating this team and see what happens. And
Okay.
I was really interested in the field of residential cases
Mm-hmm.
because I mean I didn't have that when I was a kid, and I think I would have greatly appreciated it.
Yes, I know what you
Because
mean.
and I did have situations that happened to me in my later teens that it would have been nice if there was a team there to at least have the moral support. Because that's a lot of times that's what happens when with residential cases that
Mm-hmm.
do become verified, or at least there is something odd going on, and you're there as a source of support for the client. So yeah, and it didn't take long for us to form. Maybe a few months, and then we had our first case, and I guess you could say it's all been history from there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're not the first person I've spoken to that have said, yeah, I was ready to join a team, but I really didn't find any that really fit the bill, so I ended up starting one.
Yep.
Um,
And it's one of those things. It's like if you want to do that, more power to you, because you want to. If this is something you want to do seriously and something you want to stay in, sometimes you do need to start something on your own and pick the people that ebb and flow with who you are and your personality. Because man, trust is a huge thing in the field, and if you don't trust the person that you're with when you're dealing with a really dark case, I mean,
yes,
why are you there?
absolutely, absolutely. That's very, very important. And I myself, I've been doing investigations since the 1990s, and I tell everybody, whether you're wanting to join a team or you're thinking of that you need a team to come in, I said, you need to see, are they professional? Do they know what they're doing? Have they been together? Does the team gel? Because basically, I've known a lot of teams that get together and within the 1 or 2 years they kind of fall away because either it's not what they expected or they don't realize sometimes you end up having to do investigation on weekends, or it might turn out to be boring because there's nothing really there, or it could be it's not what they expected. In other words, they're thinking of the reality TV version of
Yep.
investigations,
The
only to
abridged
find out that
40-minute version of 12 hours.
yeah, exactly. So it doesn't quite come up to what they had in their head, so they step away from it. And as far as because and the reason because are you still based out of San Diego, or are you living somewhere else now?
We relocate. Well, I relocated to Raleigh in 2013, and so I kind of took the team with me. There are still some members in San Diego who do a little bit here and there, but they're not really an active group anymore. It's more like the Avengers. If someone calls and they're needed, they'll go.
Okay. Okay. No,
But we're very active in Raleigh.
right. No, because I was going to ask you. I mean, my I had chance to visit San Diego quite a few times because my son was in the Navy and he was stationed out there on Coronado Island.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I know
And I
exactly
was
where
going
that
to
is.
ask you if you had ever done anything at the Coronado Hotel, which is supposed to be haunted.
The Hotel Del, yes, I have. Well, not like an official investigation.
Okay.
Definitely might have rented the haunted room with like three other
Oh,
friends because that's how we could afford it.
right. No, no, absolutely, I get it. Been there, done that.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the Hotel Del is like. It's not a Motel 6.
Yes, no, it is not. It is not.
Yeah, so the Hotel Del is a very prominent hotel, especially in San Diego and also the West Coast.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those places that people love going there. The ghost of Kate Morgan is very is very prominent, and people say that she's still seen around the area.
Right.
And I didn't really get much in the times that I've been in that room, as well as my friends who have been there. So the room is 3327. That's the big haunted room if you want to try to get in there.
Wow.
But yeah, I mean, we had a few weird things happen, like some noises, shadows, and whatnot. But I'm also a skeptical investigator
Sure,
too.
absolutely. That's what
I'm
you gotta
very
be.
aware when I'm very aware when I get wrapped up in the chaos of it all.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, no,
yeah,
the reason why I asked you is that, yes, I know the story of Kate Morgan, and this is like, and sometimes in my experience, I'm not saying that's not the phantom or the ghost. Because I've never really done an investigation, but I think to myself, God, could be so many candidates for this, considering how long it's been there and that it's a hotel that large. How many
hmm
things could have happened that you've got some ghosts that maybe not as romantic if you want to think about it, because her story's kind of
hmm
romantic and all this, and
yeah. Well, it was built in 1888, so I mean, we had the post-Civil War, Victorian era type of thing.
mm-hmm.
The West was really bustling and becoming a thing. So it's one of those things where I think there's a lot happening in San Diego too, especially in its beginnings. And I
Mm-hmm.
learned this, when especially, I mean, growing up, I had the history of San Diego ingrained in my head. So, yeah, it's very interesting with San Diego's history, especially with San Diego originally starting in what we now know as Old Town.
Right, I
And
was going to
then,
say Old Town. Yeah, I've been to Old Town
yeah,
myself.
and then Alonzo Horton was thinking like, wait a minute, why do you have this town here when the bay is over there?
Mm-hmm.
So Alonzo Horton was the big person to move San Diego to where downtown is today. And he actually gave a lot of money to like the First Baptist Church of San Diego. He actually gave them money to build their church and such. So
Okay.
he was very prominent in building that area. But we have to remember too, Father Sarah and the Spanish monks weren't the first people to be in San Diego.
Right.
There were Native Americans there that
Mm-hmm.
got massacred.
Right. Again,
So,
it's the same thing that you've got layers of history of occurrences there.
yep, layers upon layers upon layers. It's in an old town where Father Sarah's mission is. It was the location of a really brutal battle between the Kumeyaay people and the Spaniards.
Really.
And if you go in that area, it's actually very it's unsettling. That's the
Mm-hmm.
word I can say. It's unsettling. So, and of course, we also had the Mexican War of Independence.
Yes.
Because San Diego's like, throw a stone and you'll hit TJ if you throw far enough.
Yes, right, exactly.
So, there, and like you said, there's layers upon layers of history there, and I feel like in terms of San Diego, there's so many layers at this point that, like, the energy, it's all coming together and it's starting to vibrate a little bit, as I like to say.
Did you ever get a chance to go to the Whaley House? I mean, I know that that's been done, plus done backwards and forwards, and
Backwards and forwards and
yeah,
cartwheels and
exactly.
yes,
And
the Whaley House is interesting to me because it's I believe it is landmarked by the government as a haunted house.
right, exactly.
Especially, Yankee Jim,
Mm-hmm.
the El Campo Santo Cemetery, and I've actually gotten stuff in that cemetery, so it is legit.
Okay.
But I feel like in terms of the Whaley House, it's been so oversaturated with paranormal tourism. I felt
Mm-hmm.
it's diluted the actual whoever is there.
Right, exactly, because everybody
So,
thinks of Violet and, the daughter. And I
yep.
mean, I was there, and it was so lucky that I took the tour, and it was one of those times that I was by myself, that I was actually able to go to the upstairs, and just, it was one of those weekdays, because I was visiting,
Hmm.
where
Yeah.
it wasn't thronged, which was great. And I was
Yeah.
able to get around and look at places and just hang out there.
Yep.
And it was in the middle of the day. I got a couple of pictures, but nothing really significant. I mean, I wasn't really on like something that you could say hours and hours and things like that. But I don't know. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But I agree with you. If maybe there was at one point, maybe whatever was there is not there anymore. But yeah, it
Yeah.
kind of seems a little bit overdone. Or the ghost
Well,
got fed up with all the tourists
and
and
people
left.
and people automatically think of either Violet or Yankee Jim, and
Hmm.
but that that area was used for public hangings before Mr.
Yes,
Whaley
exactly.
purchased that land. So who's to say it was Yankee Jim? And of course, there is that rumor that a girl died because she ran into a low-hanging clothesline.
Right, yeah,
That
to
did
the
not
court, yeah.
happen.
Hmm.
I mean, there is a I mean, it's a legend, and people keep. I get tickled when, if I work with certain psychics, they're like, I sense a girl here, and she died from running into a clothesline. I'm like, I know where you read that, and it's not true.
Well, and you're absolutely right, because the story, of course, with Yankee Jim was that they measured the distance the wrong way, and he kind of like strangled to death. And I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I bet you that there was a load of people that got hanged that they weren't happy about being hanged. God knows what was
No.
going on with them.
Yeah.
And also, if you had a hangman that didn't tie the noose the right way around
Mhm.
along the side of the neck the way it's supposed to, that person would still strangle to death versus the snap. So you're absolutely right that because the gallows was there, there's absolutely a very
Mhm.
good possibility that it was or isn't Yankee Jim who's walking around. It was just, I guess,
Yep.
because of the story associated with him.
Yep. Exactly.
And yeah, they
Exactly.
have all that area, and again, it's the history. But I imagine places like that, just because when I was there doing the tourist thing, I was always looking at it through the eyes of an investigator, and I would be thinking, this place would be really, really hard to truly, truly investigate. It's just got,
Yes.
yeah, it was like,
Oh, there's so much noise. There's so much noise from Old Town in general because it's
yes,
a bustling district. Well, district. I use that term loosely. But they play music. So that's so loud. Like they can hear
yes.
up and down, and yeah. It
Yeah, no,
actually is
that's what I'm
just
saying, that the tourism, it's great. To have a good time, but as far as to ever identify if there truly is any or was anything there, very, very
mhm.
difficult. And now, one of the parts, and I don't know if well, obviously, the Stingaree district over in I guess they call it the gaslight or the gas lamp part
Gas
of,
lamp. The
yes, the
gas
gas
lamp
lamp.
district. Yeah.
Um, and as a matter of fact, I did write a book about haunted, uh, well, I don't want to say brothels, but wicked ladies. And I did a little
Mhm.
segment on that Stingaree part, and that was really
Mhm.
interesting. Before they tried to clean it out, a lot of things were going on there. So
It's funny because the 10th Avenue Theater is actually right in the Gaslamp district.
Really?
So yeah, it's not, well, it's on 10th Avenue. It's not a big surprise. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, but it's literally like right. I don't know if this place was around when you were there, but there's a burger place called Hodad, and
Mm-hmm.
it's right down the sidewalk from Hodad. And
Okay.
yeah, that's
Well, no, the reason why I say that is that, when I was doing my research, and they were talking about how, of course, because it was a port, they tried
hmm
to make it like, come on, sailors, come on over. And that it
yeah.
was a lot of things went on there in that little district. But like in all these places that they called the Tenderloin, they would try to keep like the prostitution and all that, those bars in this one little
hmm
place until they decided, no, we need to get rid of everything. And that's when they started trying to close it down. They had a lot of the opium dens and some of the
Well, Wyatt Earp
different things
owned
going on, but
Four
it was like,
Saloons.
wow. When I was there, I didn't realize it. I was thinking, man, I would love to come back. I'm sure a lot of those buildings, as a matter of fact, a lot of them were razed. They cleared them out. That was
hmm
how they wanted to get rid of the prostitutes to move on, which of course they didn't. They came back, but
Yep.
I was thinking, man, I would have loved to go into these buildings if they dated back from that time,
hmm
just to see if
Oh, of
anything could be
course.
picked up.
But also, there was a really bustling Chinese population in
Yes,
that area
yes,
too, and they were dealing with a lot of racism at the time.
yes,
I mean, there was even laws that made it illegal to hire Chinese laborers, which was
really.
crazy. So that whole area, and that whole area was just the Scenery District has always been fascinating to me, and the fact that Wyatt Earp owned four saloons in the
Yes.
area.
Yes, he did. He did. A
he
lot
was
of people don't
he was
realize that before he moved on with Josie up to the Yukon territory, he was
hmm
there. He had his hand in everything. That guy was a real entrepreneur besides being a lawman and whatever else he
I mean, he was
was.
making like $1,000 a night. I'm like,
Yes.
geez, that
And
was big money back then.
that Josie had a bad gambling habit and he would have to go behind her and like, because everybody knew after a while to
Yeah.
come to him with her debts, her gambling debts.
Mhm.
And
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
because she had a really bad gambling habit and she died like 15 years after he passed away,
Mhm.
and she kind of like died almost in poverty, and it was some of his friends that came and took care of the burial because she was addicted to gambling up until the time she died. Yep,
Yep.
goes to show you.
Goes to show you.
But yeah, the that area, it was some of the things that went on there. It was I mean, as far as like one time they were saying that because they wanted to get ready that area for, I think, something called the Pan American game, something like that. They were trying to clean up the Tenderloin up over in San Francisco and this one. So what
Mhm.
they did like a pretend like health inspection thing, and then they went in there, inspected it, and said, well, if it doesn't pass code, you got to fix it or raise it. And it turns out, believe it or not, that a lot of the landlords of a lot of these bars and saloons were prominent citizens of
Yep.
San Diego. And it was like all those hypocrites,
Yes, San Diegans.
you know. It was
Oh man.
like, and they were like, Shh, okay, we'll take care of it. Don't worry, just don't publicize our names, that as far as who the owner of that establishment is. So,
Yep.
yeah, I'm sure there's a lot going on there in San Diego. I just wish I had known about this when I was there, just so you look at it through a different look when you know more of the history of certain places, even though I know it went through a
Mhm.
period that it kind of slumped a little bit and then they redid it and it's what it is now, that it's really nice.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
as a matter of fact, I stayed at that one. I think they closed it down. That used to be the YMCA, um, that they converted into like a little hostel. Well, not little. I mean, it was pretty big. But I think I read that they had closed it down. It was real close to Singery District and not too.
Oh, I think I know which one you're
It's
talking
almost like
about.
on the corner. It's really nice. It was, and then I later on I found
Mhm.
out that they were going to close it or repurpose it or one of those things, and I was like, what a shame, because it was really old. I think it was built like in the 1920s as young men's, for the young men and then the sailors to stay there, and things like that. So let me ask something, Alex. When you've been doing, because I ask everybody this, have you had any situations where, because it sounds almost like you're sensitive or psychic, um, where you've had
No, for
experiences
me,
without
I
seeking
feel like
out?
I don't feel like I have abilities. I've been told that I'm empathic, but I think that comes from my theater training. Because I've literally studied the human condition, when it comes to being a person and
Right.
that kind of thing. I found myself sometimes I do get affected by the environment, which when that happens is not normally a good thing. I tend to actually shut down and kind of
Okay.
stare off into space. I get really negative and until
Mm-hmm.
I, do some sort of shielding or I say, hey, whoever you are, get out of my space. I work with psychics, though. I respect what they do. I think it's that area of expertise. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, especially when dealing with people.
Right.
But I have seen things happen with psychics, with a psychic that gives me inclination to believe that there's something there. But I've also gotten really good at figuring out who's not legit.
Yeah, sure.
Cold
Absolutely.
reading. Cold reading's a big thing that I study, and but if I've had a psychic come up to me with information that she would not have been able to find out about me. That
Okay.
she was very matter of fact, like X, Y, and Z, and I'm like, okay, you're the real deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
but then I'll get another person who says, "There's an old woman around you."
And you're like, yeah, okay.
I was like, okay, I'm 32. It's likely that I have a grandparent that's gone, or I have a parent that's gone. So that
Right.
doesn't help me.
Exactly. Talk about a shot in
So
the dark. Now, let me ask you that book that you wrote, The Haunting of the 10th Avenue Theater,
yes.
is that theater, is that in San Diego?
Oh yes, it is. It is in San Diego. It was originally built as a chapel for the First Baptist Church of San Diego, which was right next door.
Mm-hmm.
It was actually the church's, I think, second or third building. But a church member donated a whole bunch of money to the church to basically build a 24-hour chapel so the sailors would have a place to go to pray, not go to the Stingery district,
Right after they left
which
the
wasn't,
Stingery. Go ahead.
which didn't actually exist by that time because this opened in like around the mid 1920s.
Okay.
Go to church, not the brothel. Go to church, not to hang out and drink with your buddies. So it started out as a chapel, and it also got used for like the youth activities, Boy Scout meetings, church meetings, that sort of thing. And that place has quite a turbulent history. In terms of like, there's been a few deaths there. Granted, it hasn't been able to be confirmed through historical research, but at the same time, the church was the biggest Baptist church in the city, with a lot of connections and prominent members and whatnot. So, and the rumors that we did hear about the deaths that happened did come from actual church members who had been around for a bit.
Oh.
So, yeah. So, and they were expressed to the owner as well as myself. So it's a little interesting. I did find a few things in my historical research that inclines that these things did happen. I did have to censor their names when I published the book, just because
Mm-hmm.
we were talking like these events happened in the 60s, so they
Right.
still had family
Mm-hmm.
most likely in the area.
Yeah.
So basically, then the church then moved to another part of the city. They still owned the major church right next door as well as the chapel, but it wasn't until the early 2000s they sold the chapel to a man named Jeff Coda, who owns the building now. And he basically let it sit dormant for a little bit because in his words, he got the building at a really good deal.
Okay.
And I don't know how many good ghost stories start off with that. It's like I got the place for a really good deal.
Yeah, it was a steal.
So, it was a steal. So yeah, and he did start renting out the offices, and he actually did get started to get complaints about, hey, there's a child running up and down the hall. There's
Mm-hmm.
things happening here. And initially, it wasn't from a ghost perspective at all. It was, hey, can you tell the kid to stop running around type of thing when there's not
Okay.
supposed to be a kid there. So, and he decided to convert it into an art center and theater, and it's a great place. It's like 4 floors of like art-centric things, and it's wonderful. But he was starting to get stories from like tech people and people who had to be in the space late at night to work on lights or sets or props.
Yes.
Um, and I had actually done a few shows there myself and had some experiences where I was like, okay, that's not normal. um, just like getting touched and like watching hands come out from the curtain when there's a wall on the other side.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, okay.
that's that kind of thing where you're like, that's weird.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, that falls into the weird category.
or seeing somebody watching you from the stage manager's booth when no one is up there and you
Oh.
have the key. Um,
Oh. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, so pretty much it came to a point where I had just graduated from college. I got my master's. I had my experiences at the 10th Avenue Theater, and Jeff had like a little info page for the ghosts already, and I was looking for a place for my team to like practice and grow and stuff. And I
Mm-hmm.
basically said, "Hey Jeff, what are your thoughts on me going in there and ghost hunting in the theater?" And he loved the idea, and he basically said, "Yeah, come by, get the key, and have fun." So
Okay.
for about 2 years, I had unlimited access to
Oh,
this
that's
theater.
great.
Oh, it was amazing.
No,
And
really,
plus, he started,
absolutely. People don't realize that for ghost investigations, having access for that length of time like that, that's really when you really capture interesting evidence.
well,
Or
you
not.
do, and you build a rapport with whoever
Mm-hmm.
is haunting the space too, and they give you some favors sometimes if you have someone from the public there with you. It's like, hey, I
Yes.
got this person here. Can you do a little more tonight? you
Yeah.
know. So
And
yeah, I
what
built
was
quite a
the
relationship with them. It
who
was good.
did you make any discoveries or identify who was
We
there?
actually were able to pick up on another ghost that had been haunting the building that we had originally confused with someone else. It
Oh,
was a former church member who basically had really, to not say this disrespectfully, she had really bad OCD to the point
okay.
where it's keeping her in the afterlife. Like, no joke. Like, it drives her nuts that like the stalls in the women's bathroom are like the latches aren't on like the same side, and like
Mm-hmm.
the hinges aren't consistent,
Oh.
and yeah, and she's she makes herself known if she doesn't like what Jess does with the space. It's really like
Wow. Isn't
she
that
was one of those
incredible?
she was one of those church members that was very involved in the church. Her funeral was in the chapel, or what's now the theater. So she was beloved, but she was also one of those people with very high maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, and we found that if we really want to, she literally haunts the men's and the women's bathroom on the second floor. And actually, no, it's the fourth floor. Actually, it doesn't really matter because we find she kind of haunts all the bathrooms.
Okay.
And I'm like, Carol, like, we've actually been trying to get her to cross over. It's like, Carol, there is a wonderful paradise waiting for you.
But she's
Like,
but she's thinking, but I gotta straighten this out. And how did
exactly.
was she the one that you thought was somebody else, and then you realized it was
Yeah.
her because of that? That
Well,
com-
we had picked up one of our devices picked up a name, and it was one of those things where you pick up oh, this is a
Mhm.
person. And this was a person, and this person existed. There's the obituary. There's the verification. She was a member of the church. Oh, my
There you
gosh.
go.
And the way that we can get her to talk is if we trash the bathroom. Like,
Really?
put toilet paper in the toilet, but don't flush.
Oh my
Wet paper towels on the floor. We'll just do that, and then we'll just let it sit for like 30 minutes.
Oh my God. That is that is such a great story because you know what? I can see where with an intelligent haunting like this, that personality, it's like I gotta take care of that quick.
It's, it's like such passive provoking, and it's like, oh my
Oh
gosh.
yes. Passive provoking, but especially when you know their weakness.
Oh my
That is
gosh.
something else.
It's amazing when that happens, but literally every time I'm like, Carol, crossover. It's okay.
And you know what, Alex, this is really interesting that you say that because a lot of people think sometimes when you have these hauntings, it doesn't necessarily mean people go back to their house or where they lived. In other words, sometimes it depends. It
No.
could be their job. It could be in like this where her church.
Hmm.
It's not always where you live that you people go back to haunt.
Well, and the church meant so much to her. I mean,
Exactly.
she was that church member like every Monday, the day after the sermon, was like, "Hey, pastor, I liked your sermon, but here's something I noticed. This, like, this member stuck gum under their chair, or hey, the janitor didn't vacuum the back room correctly." Like, she cared about that space tremendously,
Hmm. Oh yeah, she was very invested. It
tremendously.
sounds like. And
Yeah, so it doesn't surprise me, especially when Jeff did all the renovations and converted the space from a
oh,
church into a theater.
I was gonna say,
Like,
do you think that she might have been a little bit outraged that it was being used as a theater?
I think so. I think that might have bugged her a bit because, I mean, from what I understand, I believe she passed around the 70s, and
Okay.
she had been a member for decades. So
Hmm.
we're talking she was a member in the 50s and 60s, and very in a conservative time where,
Yes, sure.
we appreciate artists, but they go over there. You know what I
Right,
mean?
exactly, exactly. It's like I have to laugh because I'm thinking of that character from Saturday Night Live, the church lady.
Yes.
It's theater haunted by the church lady, the OCD
Yep.
church lady. That is, that is
Yep.
excellent.
Yeah,
But
and actually, the most of the hauntings are from, well, I would say 3 out of the 4 are church members. So, well, one's a pastor, and
hmm
another was a member of the youth group, and then we have our church lady. So,
yeah,
yeah.
it's people don't realize how much. I mean, there's people that, as far as their jobs are concerned, it's like it's 5 p.m. or whatever quitting time, and it's like I'm out of here. See ya. And then there's other people like you described, whether it's their church or their job or something, they invest themselves into what's going on
Mhm.
there. In other words, this is the center of their universe, and when they pass on, and a lot of the times, that personality. Well, if I don't do it, I know it's not going to get done right.
Yep.
So
Yep.
even if they've passed on, they got to be around to like make sure it gets done right, which is what it sounds like
Mhm.
she's doing.
Jeff did fix the hinges, and as far as I understand, when he fixed the hinges, it got like things calmed down a little bit.
I have to laugh, but that definitely describes an OCD personality to the nth
Yeah.
degree. Yes, so
Yep.
much
Yep.
so, so much so. Uh, well, Alex, I wanted to thank you for spending this time with me today. It has been fantastic to hear your stories. Absolutely great. Um, and like I said, I always believed that, like I said at the beginning, that the intensity and the emotion that goes into what actors do, it's inevitable
Mhm.
that just like the church ladies with her church, that you're going to get
Yep.
actors that are tied to where they acted at for whatever reason,
Yep.
whether it was the work or what was going on behind the scenes,
Yep.
or I'm even thinking maybe somebody that never does make it as, I want to say maybe not now, but before I think that um, there was a lot of competition for, well, maybe I'm wrong about that, but for leads as far as getting ahead and making yourself established in that world.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, so it's a lot of drama. But again, I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time. It was fantastic, and I wish you luck. And do you have any new books planned? Anything new coming out?
I'm working on a fiction book right now, so hopefully
Okay.
that will be coming out within the year. Actually got some inspiration for another book about a haunted location, but that's very much in the baby stages. Like the idea came 2 days ago. Um,
Okay. Good.
so I'm hoping to get out something like an anthology of ghost stories from North Carolina because I've been
Mm-hmm.
getting to know the state very well. And yeah, so
Yeah, that's what it
um,
all starts with. That's the seed from which it sprouts, is that first idea that starts
mhm.
bumping around in your head, and then it just takes on a life of its own. But that's where it starts. Again, well, then good luck with that.
Thank
And
you so much, and thanks for having me on.
absolutely my pleasure. Take care.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Wow. Theater ghosts. God, so many theaters get that reputation of being haunted. I mean, some of them deserve it. Some of them it's just a romanticism, but I wasn't kidding. Think about it. Even now, theater is obviously live entertainment, but I guess where so much of entertainment nowadays is manipulated into perfection. Like I was telling her, if it's a movie, it's a program. In other words, if it's being filmed, it can be edited, it can be cleaned up, it can be fixed. Um, Same thing, well, all the graphics and all the special effects, same thing. But when somebody's doing theater, this is it. This is not make believe. Yeah, there's rehearsal and everything, but you're seeing the real thing, and I think that's one of the most fascinating things that there is about theater. Uh, and I think actors in and of themselves, their emotional makeup lends itself to producing some hauntings, depending on what's going on. I mean, even before vaudeville, I mean, acting has been around for so long. I mean, you think about what she was saying from Elizabethan times that they only had men actors. They didn't have any women. Women weren't allowed to be actors, and of course, it changed along the way. And during the Victorian times, they had like Sarah Bernhardt, Lily Langtry. I mean, this was apart from because during those times you had opera, which in a way was kind of a theater. It was theater, but obviously it was an opera. And then you got into just what's theater like is in plays. And I think that uh, a lot of people had dreams that never became fulfilled, um, or being famous. Maybe you were famous for years, but then you're like happens to sometimes a lot of actors, their star fades and that's it. You're not wanted anymore. Uh, I think just like the recent scandals that have happened in Hollywood, where you had to cater or kowtow to the people in charge if you wanted to get a part, if you wanted to become famous, if you wanted to go ahead and go forward. Uh, I think there's more to it than what you see now or behind the scenes. So absolutely, absolutely. Theaters are rife with phantoms. Some of them residual and some of them not, just because of, I think, what's involved in that lifestyle. Absolutely. And maybe I want to bring a show back. I was thinking of doing a show just about theater ghosts, as in all these different, because there's certain theaters. As a matter of fact, in most major cities, there's theaters that have a reputation of being really, really haunted. Just because, again, and sometimes there was another one in Chicago where there was a big fire, a bunch of people got trapped, died because they had not opened. They didn't have the emergency exit. This was what, 100 years ago, something like that. I mean, there's a lot of things attached to theaters, and again, anywhere that you go that you've got high emotional content, whether it's from the audience, like she was saying, that electricity, as far as, well, obviously the instruments, but even before there was electrical, when people, theaters were around and there was no electricity, still, there was a lot of emotion from the actors, between the actors, from the actors to the audience. In some cases, you also had an orchestra there as well. Uh, and I'm even thinking of all these competitions, like between these leading ladies and the people and the chorus girl that maybe wanted to become a leading lady. Ballet, that's another type of theater. I mean, there's a whole melange of so many interesting haunted stories about the theater in its different versions. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming back and either seeing the show on YouTube or catching the podcast version on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Podbean. I'm all over the place. Make sure to subscribe so you always get notifications of when I release a new show. If you're a true believer, please go to MiamiGhostChronicles.com so you can submit your true story or something that you heard about. I've received a lot of fantastic stories. I've also got a lot of great guests coming on that I think you are all really going to enjoy hearing the interviews with them, whether they're an investigator and or authors or even witnesses. Like I said, I've got some stories coming up from my true believers. So catch me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And again, thank you so much. You are all wonderful. Take care.